Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 5 is rock, paper, scissors game. Write a program that lets the user play the game of rock, paper, scissors against the computer. The program should work as follows. When the program begins, a random number in the range of 1 through 3 is generated. If the number is 1, then the computer has chosen rock. If the number is 2, then the computer has chosen paper. If the number is 3, then the computer has chosen scissors. Don't display the computer's choice yet. The user enters his or her choice of rock, paper, or scissors at the keyboard. You can use a menu if you prefer. The computer's choice is displayed. A winner is selected according to the following rules. And these are the rules. If one player chooses rock and the other player chooses scissors, then the rock wins. Then you can display the message and say the rock smashes the scissors. If one player chooses scissors and the other player chooses paper, then the scissors wins. And over here, it's if it's paper and rock, one player chooses paper, one player chooses rock, then the paper wins, and you can display this message. Now, if both players make the same choice, the game must be played again to determine the winner. Be sure to divide the program into methods that perform each major task. Okay, so it's a rock, paper, scissors game. Well, before this, okay, well, I knew. I was about to say that I didn't actually know how this game works, but I think one day one of my friends showed me how it works. I didn't even know, but I think I did it in the past once, so I have an idea. When they use their hands to, it's a very popular game, for most people in America. But since I didn't grow up in America, I don't know. Anyway. So let's start, and then it will make sense. We'll go through it line by line, and we'll make sense out of it as we code it. So I'm going to go ahead and create the class, and then I'll call it rock, paper, scissors game. And then I'll go ahead and create the main method. Over here. Okay, so I'm just space it out because we're going to create methods, so let me just get it ready. Okay, so let's see. Write a program that, we know this. Okay, so it's telling us what should happen when the program begins. It says, when the program begins, a random number in the range of 1 through 3 is generated. So since we're going to be generating a random number, we have to go ahead and import the random class because we're going to generate a random number. So to import the random class, we're going to type in import java.util.random. Now we've imported the random class, so this program has this program has access to it. So with a random class, we have to go ahead and declare well, let's see. Over here, when you get to the end of the question, the program says, be sure to divide the program into methods that perform each major task. So we may not even end up creating a random number in main. We may end up creating a method, that does just that. So let's see. When the program begins, a random number, okay. If the number is 1, then the computer has chosen rock. If the number is 2, then the computer has chosen paper. If the number is 3, then the computer has chosen scissors. Don't display the computer's choice yet. So we can describe this whole question as, we can describe it as generating the computer's choice, because the computer is going to generate a random number from 1 or in the range 1 through 3. And if the number is 1, then the computer has chosen rock, and then papers, and then scissors, if it's 2 and 3 respectively. So that means that we can describe this whole idea as a computer generating first of all a random number, and then mapping what number it is to what word it maps to. So if it's 1, then it's rock, if so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and create a method for that, since it says be sure to divide the program into methods that perform each major task. And also chapter 5 is about methods, so let's do that. Now, in the previous chapter 5 videos, I've mentioned that some people like to go ahead and define their methods under the main method. They define their main method under the main method and still call it in main, and it will still work. once you define the method, in this class, I mean, as long as you define the method, it's available. You can define it below and call it in main. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go ahead and define mine above main. It still works, but whether it's above or below main, it's still going to work. But I'm just going to do mine above main. Sometimes it's logical to me that way, but sometimes I mix it up. I do it up here, or I do it below here. But for now, I'm going to define it above main. I'm going to create a method. I'm going to call it generate computer choice, or get computer choice. We can do that. We can call it generate, because that's what it's doing. It's generating the computer choice. So I'm going to call it generate computer choice, and it's going to be a public static method. Public because the method is going to be available to code that is outside of this class, and then static because this method it belongs to this class. It's going to belong to this class. Now I need to specify the return type of the method next. I'm going to specify the return type as a string because this method is going to generate the computer's choice. First of all, it's going to generate a number and then use a number to generate the choice. But that's going to happen in the method itself. But what it's going to return is going to be a string. It's going to return either rock, paper, or scissors as a choice that the computer selected. So I'm going to specify the return type to be a string here. And then I need to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call it generate computer choice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and create the structure here. Now, this method, I'm going to now specify if it has any parameters or any parameters. So let's see. First of all, since I'm going to be in this method, I'm going to be generating random numbers, right? Since in this method I'm going to be generating random numbers, it will need a random object to work with. This will need a random object to work with. So think about it. It's just a method on its own, right? So it's going to need, if I'm going to generate random numbers within this method, it's going to need a random object to work with. So first of all, when you're generating when you are defining a method, and let's say it returns, it's accepting an argument of type, let's say int. You define a parameter of type int and you call it something. Okay, you call it something. You can call it anything, but this time around it's going to need a random object. A random object is going to be passed into this method when it's called. The random object also has a type of random, which is the big with a capital R. Okay, so just like you saying this method, for example, needs a string called something. Now I need a random object over here called I'm just giving it a name. I'm just calling it random. I'm just giving it a name here. So this is a type. This is a class type instead of a regular primitive type like int. This is a class type because you can generate an object from this. It's a class type variable. This random is a class type variable. It's just a placeholder, meaning that when you call this method, you also need to pass in a random object so that the method can use a random object to generate the random numbers. So yes, this method is going to now need the random object to generate random numbers. So in this method, in order to first of all generate generate the computer's choice, I first need to create a random number in the range of 1 through 3. Anytime I call this method to generate a computer choice, I need to create a random number in the range of 1 through 3. So I'll have the random object here. So I'm going to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a random integer in the range of 1 through 3. So I'm going to call the next int method of the random object. I'm going to say, or you can say the next int method in the random class. I'm going to say random.nextInt. Now I need to specify the range that I want the number to be in. Okay, so create a random integer in the range. If I type in 3 like this is going to create a random number, a random integer in the range of 0 to 2. So 0, 1, and 2. Three things, right? But it's going to create a random number in the range of 0, 1, 2. This number 3 is the upper limit. It's not included. It's just at the upper limit, but it's not included. It's used to specify the upper limit. It's to specify the upper limit, but it's not included. So if I type, let's say 9, this is actually giving me a random number in the range of 0 to 8. 9 is not included. So if I type in 3 here, it's giving me a random integer in the range of 0 to 2, 0, 1, and 2. But what I can do with this is I can shift it by 1. If I type in +1 here, I'm shifting it by 1. That means that if I remove this, I'm having 0, 1, and 0, 1, and 2. Okay, but if I shift it by 1, I say +1 outside the parentheses. I'm saying shift the range from 0. Okay, so let me just do this now. 0 to 2 is when you have this. This is creating a range of 0 to 2, 0, 1, and 2. But if I shift it by 1, I'm saying shifted the position of the range by 1. So meaning instead of 0 to 2, add 1 to 0 to 1, and then add 1 to 2 to 3. So shift the range by 1, meaning instead of 0, 1, 2, shift it by 1. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Shift the range. So now this statement here is going to generate a random number in the range of 1, 2, 3 included because I've shifted it by 1. Okay, so once I generate a random number, I need a place to store it. I need a variable to store it in. So I'm going to go ahead and create over here. Before this, I'm going to go ahead and create an integer, a variable, okay, which is going to hold that number. So I'm going to call that variable. First of all, it's going to be an integer. I'm going to call it let me see, think about a name to call it. Let's see, it's going to be a word number. You can call it anything, right? I'm going to call it because this is going to be the number that's going to represent the word, right? Or the word that the computer is going to choose. So I'm going to say word ID or word ID. I'm just going to say word number. This is the number that represents the word, either rock, paper, or scissors. So int word number, and word number is going to hold that random number that is generated this way. And then now I need to check the value of word number to determine what word that the computer chose, right? Because it's going to be random each time. So if this method runs and the word number is generated, it's 2. The program says over here that if the number is 2, then the computer has chosen paper. So we can go ahead and use an if statement and say this. First of all, we can say if. I'm creating a structure over here. I'm going to say if the word number, okay, is equal to 1. What does that mean? Over here it says when if the number is 1, then the computer has chosen rock. Okay, so if the word number is equal to 1, then the computer's word is rock, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable that's going to also hold the word that the computer chooses. Okay, so I'm going to, for example, create a variable. It's going to be a string because it's going to hold a string, a word. String, I'm going to call it computer's choice or computer choice. And if the word number that was generated is 1 or was 1 or is 1 is 1. If it's 1, then computer choice, I'm going to say computer word choice, just so we can know exactly what it is. So computer word choice is going to be equal to, now I'm assigning over here, I'm using double equals to compare. Okay, if I just did this, I'll be assigning what's on the right to what's on the left. But if I leave it like this, it's going to say, okay, hey, if you are able to assign 1 to word number, then do what's in the block. I don't want that. I'm just comparing and saying, this is just comparing to say, is what's on the right equal to what's on the left? Is it equivalent to what's on the left? So here I'm asking, is what's on the right equal to what's on the left? Or equal to the content of what's on the left? So yeah, it's the same thing. If what's on the left is equal to content of the right, so is what's on the left is equal to what's on the right, or what's on the right equal to what's on the left. All right. So if word number is equal to 1, then the computer choice, now I'm assigning, so 1 equals is equal to the word, what it is, it's equal to the word rock. Okay, if the number is 1, then the computer has chosen rock. Now I can go ahead and create an else if the word number is equal to 2. Okay, then the computer word choice is equal to paper, right? Yeah, if it's 2, then the computer has chosen paper. And then else if the word number is equal to 3, then the computer sorry, my typing is not good. Word choice is equal to scissors, right? Scissors. Oops, did I type it correct? I think it's double S. Like this? Yes. Yes, scissors. So if the word number is 1, rock. If it's 2, paper. If it's 3, scissors. So by the time this statement gets to this point, we will know what the computer's word choice is. And then once we're done, we want to go ahead and return the computer word choice. Because now we said it was going to return a string. So computer word choice is a string too. We would have the string, the word choice in here, return it. So if I call this method generate computer choice and I give it a random object, it's going to use a random object to create the number, map the number to whatever word it's supposed to be, assign that word to computer word choice, and then return it at the end. So anytime I call generate computer choice, it's going to return either rock, paper, or scissors. We can test it out and say system.out. We can test it out in main and say system.out.print ln. We can say print out what is being returned when I call. Well, first of all, I would have to declare a random object in main, so I can pass it to it. So in order to create a random object, okay, once we import the random class, I have to go ahead and create a random object. So I'm going to go ahead and create a random object. So I'm creating a random object. I'm going to call it random here, and it's going to be creating a new random object in memory over here. So this is the random object. I can go ahead and pass it when I call the method generate computer choice. So print out over here, I can say print out what is being generated or what is being returned from computer generated choice. It needs a random object, so I'm going to pass in the random object that I just created over here to it. So now this statement should go ahead and return either rock, paper, or scissors anytime I run it. So I'm going to compile it. Let me go ahead and save it. So I'm going to create a new folder in chapter 5. I'm going to call it rock, paper, scissors game. Scissors. Scissor. And then I'll save it as rock, paper, scissors game dot Java. Okay, we have a couple of errors. So it's over here. It says what? Cannot find symbol generated computer choice. Okay, I said generated. Over here I defined it as generate computer choice, but over here I said generated. So I'm going to remove the D and compile it. And over here it says computer word choice might not have been initialized. So when we started, it needed to know what the value of over here, because we're comparing. Over here it's assigning. When it's assigned, it needs to know what already stored in. When you define it, it needs to know what's already stored in it. So I'm going to initialize it to nothing. I'm initializing it to nothing here. So when it's initialized the first time, it's equal to nothing, and then something is going to be assigned to it based on what word number or based on the value of word number. So I'm going to compile this, and then now we're fine. Now over here, once we run it, it should go ahead and return either rock, paper, or scissors. So when I run this, now it says rock. When I run it again, it says rock. Run it again, paper, paper, scissors, 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 rock. So now we can see that it's working. Rock, paper. All right, so we can see it's working now. Anytime we say generate computer choice, give it a random object, it's going ahead to give us a random name, which either rock, paper, or scissors. So now we've created a method that does that. So let me go ahead and delete this. We wouldn't need it, but we'll need this random object in main if we are going to use any or create any random numbers, or if you're going to call any methods that will need a random object. Okay, so now we're done with the first part of the question. We've generated. It says don't display the computer's choice yet. Okay, we're not going to display it. The second one says the user enters his or her choice of rock, paper, or scissors at the keyboard. You can use a menu if you prefer. So let's go ahead and create a method just to display the menu. Right. So after creating this generate computer choice, I'm going to go ahead and create another method. It's just going to show a menu. It's not going to return anything. It's just going to show a menu. So it's also going to be a public static method. It's going to return nothing. So that means it's going to return void, nothing, void. And then I'm going to call this method show menu. It's not going to receive any arguments. So I'm not going to go ahead and define any parameters. It's just going to go ahead and display something. So I'm going to say system.out.println. What I want to display is let's see, just the menu. I'll say what should I say? I'll just say please. No, I'll just go ahead and display the menu. I'll say 1 is rock. I'm going to create a new line after that. A new line which is going to be \n. \n is both characters together. It's a new line character. It creates a new line, meaning it takes the position from where it's from the line it's at the moment to the next line, and anything that comes after that new line character is displayed on that next line. So rock, 2 is paper, and then 3, new line, 3 is scissor. So that's going to be the menu. So when I call over here, I'm going to test this method. When I call over here show menu and I terminate it, it should just display this. So I'm going to compile this and then run it. And now you can see that it's working. It's just showing the menu. If I call it twice, it's going to show the menu twice. It's just doing one function. See, now it's calling it twice. Okay. So now the show menu is working also. But the second point says the user enters his or her choice of rock, paper, or scissors at the keyboard. You can use a menu if you prefer. Okay. So the menu we're just going to show it, but we also have to create a method that's going to accept the user's choice. So just like we created a method that says generate computer choice, we're going to create a method. I'm going to call it something like get user choice. That is going to accept the user's choice, okay, and return it. Yeah. So after show menu, I'm going to go ahead and create another method. It's going to be a public static method. It's going to return a string also, because remember the computer generated, so generate computer choice method returned a string, which was the computer's word. The user generated method is also going to accept. Sorry, it's going to return the user's string. Okay, the user string that whatever the user type is going to go ahead and return it. So I'm going to define the return type to a string. I'm going to call this method get. Take this down. I'm going to call it get user choice. And this method is going to use a scanner to accept information from the keyboard, or from the user through the keyboard, right? It would need the scanner. It's not available to it automatically. Well, first of all, if we want to use a scanner, we have to go ahead and import it, right? If we want to use a scanner class, we have to go ahead and import the scanner class. So I'm going to import java.util dot scanner here. And with a scanner, if you wanted to use it in main, for example, you'd have to declare a scanner object. Now this method is just a method. It's just a method. Before it can use the scanner before you can, for example, ask a user, ask for user input using a scanner, you need a scanner object, right? So this method, in order to use a scanner object to ask the user for input, it needs a scanner object. So over here, it's going to require a scanner object parameter, right? So you before you use a scanner, you need to go ahead and it needs a scanner object. So again, just like, for example, you define a parameter like, let's say, int number. So this is a variable called number of type int. Okay, now this time, since it's going to need a scanner, it's going to need a scanner of type scanner, and this is just the name of it. So it's going to need a scanner variable of type scanner. But that variable is when you think about it, it's really an object. This is a class type object, just like the random. Scanner is the class type object. This is a class type variable. Scanner is a class type variable, just like the random, which is also a class type variable. And this is going to be an object. Okay, you can create object from class type variables, but you can't from regular primitive variables like int. All right. So it will need the scanner object. So over here, I'm saying that this method, when you call it, you have to provide it a scanner object. Okay, I'm just saying you have to provide. If you've created one in main, just provide a scanner object to it. So what's going to happen is we're just going to go through the regular sequence of asking the user input. I'm going to say system.out.println, and I'm going to say, please, I would say, the computer has already generated, its choice. Please generate yours. Or I'm just going to guess and say, well, first of all, anytime, let's see, anytime before we come back to get user choice, in the generate computer choice, anytime the computer generates a choice, let's add a string to it and say, anytime it generates a choice, let's add a string and say, before the return, let's just say system.out.println, let's display a message and say the computer has generated or has chosen a word, or has made its choice. I don't know, something like that. The computer has made its choice. And then over here, I'm going to say, in get user choice, I'm going to say your user's turn or something. I don't know. I'm going to say, user, please make your choice. And since anyone who calls this method is going to pass a scanner object, I can use a scanner object now and say scanner. Okay, the scanner object that was given to me here. Dot next line. Next line is going to basically pop up some kind of text box and allow the user to type in something. Terminate it. And allow the user to type in something, and whatever is typed is going to be returned as a string. Right? So user, please make your choice. The user is going to type in something in the text box, and whatever is typed into that text box is going to be returned as a string. When it's returned, I will need a place to store it. I'll need a variable to store it in. So I'm going to come up here and define in the method. I'm going to define define a variable. I'll call it. First of all, it's going to be a string because the user is going to type a string. This method is going to return that input as a string. I'm defining a variable, a string variable, to hold that string that the user types. So I'm going to define it as a string. I'll call it user choice or user chosen word or something. What did I call this one in computer? I said computer word choice. Okay, over here I'm going to call it user word choice, just for consistency. user word choice, string user word choice, and user word choice is going to hold the word choice or the word that the user chose. User word choice is going to be stored here. Now once the user has typed in his or her choice, now I want to go ahead and return it. Okay, return user word choice. Don't print it, just return it. User word choice, like this. So anytime I call get user choice, it's going to need a scanner object defining a variable called user word choice. I'm going to ask the user to type in a choice. The user is going to type in either rock, paper, or scissors. Is going to be stored in user word choice, and I want to return that word. So I'll know the user's choice. I can print it out. Whatever is being returned, I can print it out or do whatever I want with it. Okay, so now I've done that. So now we can just test it out and see over here before we move on over here. So I'll have my random. I would also need to define my scanner object. So I'm going to create a scanner object. I'll call it scanner, creating a new scanner object in memory, and I'm passing in the system.in method, which is basically going to take in byte info from the keyboard, connect it. Well, it's going to create a scanner object, connect it into to the scanner object. So it's going to create a scanner object. The system.in method is I'm connecting the system.in method to the scanner object, which is going to take byte info from the keyboard, and we can use the methods in the scanner class to convert whatever the user typed to, let's say, doubles or whatever we want them to be in. Right, so now I have a random object, I have a scanner object. So when I call the methods that need them, I can go ahead and use them, pass either a random or scanner object to it.